and welcome to the Valley. Today, I am your host, Janet Michael. We are sitting today at Family Promise, Winchester area. Chris Briganti is their executive director, and we're going to have a conversation because, Chris, there's been a lot of changes, a lot of growth, a lot of changes. You, for one, are one of the changes. You're fairly new in this position as executive director at Family Promise.
I am, and thank you so much for having me, Janet. We're so excited to get to share more about our program. But you're right, there have just been some incredible changes. We have been operating in the area since 2022. We started taking families in 2023, but we've been in a development period for a while now. I was hired on last year in July, came in as our first executive director. We are now in a period of growth, and we're trying to start new programs, expand our reach as the needs grow. We also have updated our name. We were previously known as Family Promise of Northern Shenandoah Valley, but there's only 3 Family Promises in the state, and one of them is next door in Family Promise Shenandoah County. And so they would get our checks, we would get theirs.
It gets confusing.
It does. And so we changed our name to Family Promise Winchester area, but we do continue to serve not just the city of Winchester, but also Frederick, Warren, and Clark counties.
So for someone who's never heard of you, no matter what your name was, give me a little history and a little background. When you talk about the people that you serve, who are they?
What we serve is families who either have minor children or who are expecting a child who are experiencing some sort of housing instability. So some are homeless living in their car, a lot are in motels. We have some in trailers in Watermelon Park. A lot of them, too, are also families who are threatened with eviction for some reason or another. But there is always a child involved, and that's who we help. We're actually part of a national network, the Family Promise Network. We have about 200 affiliates all over the country.
Wow.
How it started back in 1988 is our founder, Karen Olson, started a rotating shelter model. And so we would go to the different churches.
Very much like Watts
Exactly like
now.
The Watts model. And we did that for families until COVID. Everything had to shift. Obviously, the whole world changed. I don't miss it.
No, we learned a couple of things from it that I'm still not ready to say outweigh the pain that we went through while we were having it, but there were some silver linings to it.
Blowing out candles on a cake will never be the same.
Right.
But so that shift has happened, but that Family Promise Network, we're first a shelter network. Shelter for families is something really important. It's something we're working on here. And then 2, it's just keeping families in homes. Families can be the invisible homeless. You don't see them on the street. You don't see them walking around in a way you can identify them, but I tell you they're out there. Just in the 2024-2025 school year for the public schools of Winchester, Frederick, Warren, and Clark, there were 539 students who self-identified as homeless. And since that's self-identification, that means the number's probably a lot higher.
Exactly. It is a lot higher. I've had that conversation with Robin from Watts when we talked about the point in time count on the show back in January, and Elise and I from Bright Futures have had that conversation because it's also difficult in that the schools define homeless in a different way than mostly your general population defines it, as well as the federal government. So for those to self-identify really does mean that those are strong numbers, which is sad.
It's heartbreaking. And a lot of parents, they don't want to say yes to that question. They're worried CPS is going to show up. And if you're living in your car with your child, that's scary. And that's not a great environment for the kid. But it's important for them to self-identify because programs like Bright Futures do so much good for these families. And these programs are not here to get people in trouble. They are here to lift people up out of that cycle of poverty.
And it's so important because what you do, focusing on these families and people with children or about to have children, because there's no other resource for them. They can't go to Watts. They can't go to any of the shelters here because they're not set up for families.
They're not. Having children in a shelter is just a whole different animal.
Right.
We've been working on a feasibility study to look at what it would look like to build a standalone shelter. That's many years down the line. But what we have found is that there's just so many unique needs of having children, keeping them safe in an environment. And so Watts and Rescue Mission, they do amazing work. They are so good in the community, but they just simply don't have the resources and the ability to do children. And so that is why we are actively working. Hopefully next year, we might have a full shelter program up and running, not at a standalone shelter, but potentially leasing out apartments to families and just making sure they have a place to go. I don't want my families to be sleeping in their cars.
Right.
And that's right now, I think, the biggest unmet need in our community.
So how does it work now that you don't have a standalone shelter? What kinds of things do you do? How do you find the families that you need to help? How does that process work?
So we get referrals from about everywhere you can imagine. We get a lot of referrals from our church partners. We get referrals from DSS, from schools. from other nonprofit organizations. We have a vast network of people who know about us. We're Winchester's best kept secret.
Right.
So we get them from all over, and the people come in, and how it works now is if anyone's living in their car, frankly, we have been piloting a little bit of a shelter program, but that's in early stages. That's really about collecting numbers. There's not much to do with those families. And so the biggest thing we can do right now is try to very quickly get them into new housing. And that can be difficult because we have to help that family overcome whatever barrier got them here in the first place. Because the last thing we want to do is put a family in a new home and then 2 months from now they can't afford the rent. And so we work with these families closely, we vet them, we do financial counseling, and we make sure that once we move them in, they are someone who's just going to be doing great afterwards. And in fact, the big increase we're seeing in families now are not families who are chronically homeless historically. It's families who have worked a good job for a long time, who have never had to ask for assistance in any way, shape, or form, but they lose their job. A lot of federal contractors have been laid off, or they get ill and can't work.
And I think that's a big misconception. I think the general public thinks these federal contractors are making like multi-million dollars a year, and that is not the case. They are not making much more above minimum wage than the rest of us.
They're living paycheck to paycheck, especially with cost of living going up so much.
And then factor in a shutdown.
Yeah.
Where you still got to work, but you're not
Exactly.
going to get paid for a month, 2 months, 3 months.
Exactly, and I can't even imagine what that must be like. And actually, that is the most exciting place we're able to step in right now. We have what's called the Help Us Move In program. What that allows us to do is step in when a family's facing eviction or a family is living in a motel and needs to enter into new housing. These are families that just need a little bit of assistance. Maybe they need help making the first month's rent, or maybe there's back rent and they've done everything. Sometimes all we have to do is help with $500. Give that to that landlord for that rental arrear, and then that family will never need assistance again. So this HUMI fund, as we call it, Help Us Move In, gives us this pot that allows us to provide direct financial assistance to these families who just need the tiniest bit of help to get over this hill.
And you just got a fairly large, hey, we want to help you with that from one of the local churches, right?
We did. I almost fell out of my chair when I opened the envelope, but Opequon Presbyterian Church has been so generous. As part of their capital campaign, they are working on a new sanctuary, I believe. As part of their capital campaign, they are helping a few nonprofits, and we are one of the beneficiaries. I am very honored to say that Opequon gave us a $20,000 donation.
Wow.
And that is huge for us, and it's huge for the community because all of those funds are going directly into this HUMI fund. Every penny that gets spent from that fund is direct financial assistance that will get a family either staying in their housing or into new housing for the long term, for the stability of it. And we were just so excited for them to give us that generous donation. We're really trying to raise awareness about this fund and how important it is, because the families we are helping are not people you see on the street corner, although we do help them. But the families we are helping are your neighbor next door. They are your friends.
The people you would never suspect.
Exactly, and they don't,
Because they have
know.
gotten also very good at hiding and covering it up. So you would not know that it's your bank teller or the person checking you out at Walmart. You would have no idea that that's what their life is like when they leave work.
Right, and those are also the people who are the least equipped to handle that situation because they don't know where to turn. But that's exactly right. And people don't share these things with their friends and family. It's embarrassing to have to ask for help. It's really embarrassing to have to tell someone I'm hungry. And so we're here to try to make that easier for them. We love when a family comes in. That's one of the things we talk about right away is there is nothing to be ashamed of asking for help. A lot of them have themselves helped others when they were in need. And I always ask, did you judge that person? No. You gave them your love, your compassion, your empathy. And that's what we're here to do with these families, because we can step in early and for very little money sometimes absolutely prevent a family from ever having to experience any sort of homelessness.
And let's be clear, this isn't you as Family Promise writing that family a check. That money is going directly to the people that it is owed to, whether it's a deposit and you're giving it to a landlord, or it's Rappahannock Electric or Shenandoah Valley Electric to get their power turned on in a new place that they're moving into. So we hear so much about, oh, they're gaming the system. These people can't game the system because they're not actually getting that money in their pocket.
Right, and it's all going directly to the landlord or to that provider. And one of the things we do is, again, we have a limited amount of resources. I wish I had a magic wand and a giant pot of money.
Right.
But so what we have to do is when we look at these families, one of the things we get, for instance, is their rent ledger for the last year. Are they missing rent every month? Have they been doing something chronically? Or is this really a situation in which up until now they've been great? We get their finances. What are you spending your money on? If you're spending $1,000 a month going out to steak dinners, that's not really the family we're looking for.
Right.
Because they are potentially not in a place yet to responsibly get into these apartments and stay there. And that's what we're trying to do. And so these all go directly to landlords, and they're all going to families that we know are going to succeed with just this little bit of help.
When you talk about the families, you mentioned earlier a lot of your church partners, the fact that Opequon gave you this $20,000. This is a faith-based organization, but not. Explain how that works.
Absolutely. So the entire history of Family Promise National going back is an interfaith organization. Those church partners in that rotational model and the broader faith community were essential and are still essential into how Family Promise operates, particularly our affiliate. I will tell you, our church partners are one of our biggest sponsors, one of the biggest people that help us. So our organization is driven by interfaith values. We believe in compassion, love, empathy, helping the meek, but our programming itself is not faith-based. If we have families that are looking for that community and that fellowship, we have church partners who we can direct them to. We are happy to pray with our families, but at the end of the day, we serve all families of all compositions. It doesn't matter what religion you are. There is no expectation that you'll do
Have
anything.
to go to church on Sunday in order
that.
for us to cover your rent, right?
No, what we believe here at Family Promise is that families should be viewed through the eyes of the child. Whoever that child sees as their family is their family to us. And whatever that looks like, it doesn't matter to us. And so that's, I think, important for people to know, is just that we want to help everybody. If you have a minor child and you live in Winchester, Frederick, Warren, or Clark, then you qualify for our services. And what's actually really helpful is we fill a gap. There is this type of family where when they run into these problems, they do maybe go to social services, but they're making too much money. But it doesn't matter if you're making too much money. If you're stuck in a motel and having to pay $2,000 a month, how do you
And
save
don't even
the money?
get me started on the hotel
Yeah.
cycle and what that is
Right.
like for a family.
It's awful. And so they can't, for instance, go to social services. So sometimes these other organizations or agencies, they'll send the family to us because we have the flexibility to say, we don't really care about your income, we care about your situation.
Right.
And actually a person having good income, that's our favorite type of family, because once we help them through this period, they're gonna be okay.
Let's take a break. When we come back, you were talking earlier about what a year of growth it's been. Can we do a little data dive and talk a little numbers in the next segment?
Absolutely, I'd love to.
We're going to do all that when we come back. We are recording today in the offices, aka the church.
Yeah.
Family Promise, Winchester area. Chris Brigante is here with me. He is their executive director. We're going to talk more about the organization when we come back in just a couple of minutes.
United Way of the Northern Shenandoah Valley is inviting nonprofits to help map the region's nonprofit safety net. If your organization serves Winchester City, Frederick, Clark, Warren, Shenandoah, or Page counties, we encourage you to take our regional nonprofit survey. The information collected will help identify gaps, support collaboration, and inform community leaders and funders. The survey takes about 30 minutes and is available at unitedwaynsv.org.
Welcome back to the Valley. Today, I am your host, Janet Michael. We are sitting today at Family Promise, Winchester area. Chris Brigante is joining me. He is their executive director, learning a little bit about the organization. And Chris, we were talking at the very beginning of our conversation about the growth spurt that you have had here at Family Promise. The beauty of you being here now as an executive director is that you're able to capture numbers, because that's very important. People will give to you because it's the right thing to do and they want to be helpful, but being able to say, this is how many families we've served and this is what we've prevented from happening, that's very valuable information to have.
Data is everything. Not only is it important for advocacy, but I think one of the basic things we owe our donors, our society, we're a nonprofit organization, is to let them know where that money is going. I think stewarding our limited resources and ensuring that they are used efficiently to the maximum benefit and not be wasted is a central part of what I'm trying to bring. But yeah, no, we have great numbers. I'm so excited. So
your numbers are a double-edged sword, I will say
they
though,
are.
because it's great that you have great numbers and
Yeah.
you have the numbers to begin with, but then when you hear them, you're like, oh my gosh, those are people.
No, that's true. And I will tell you too, as much as we are being able to serve right now, the need is so much greater. We're barely scratching the surface. So last year in 2025, to give you some background, we had about, as part of these HUME funds that go to the direct financial assistance, we moved in about 28 families and we prevented 13 families from being evicted last year. That was about 80 children. that we kept in a home or got into a home. This year, already in the third week of February, we have moved 7 families into new homes. That's 20 children. And we have prevented 11 evictions, which is 25 children. So that's 45 kids just in this first month and a half. That's already more than half of all of last year. And the cost to us was about $500 per child.
Get out.
That's all it took to get them in a home that they just don't have to worry that they might not have tomorrow.
That is insane.
Yeah. It's such an effective place to step in. What we've really leaned into is the eviction prevention, because if you can get to these things early, it's just so much more cost effective, and it just helps everybody, society, social networks, social benefits.
And I get it as someone who years ago would struggle to pay the electric bill, and you keep thinking that money's going to come in, or I'm going to do something extra and make an extra $100 and I'm going to be able to pay that electric bill, and you keep hoping and you keep thinking, and then the date comes and you don't have it. And so a lot of families wait until it's too late. So the value of being able to get to you sooner shows in these numbers of what you can keep from happening.
Yeah, well, and it goes back to people being embarrassed, not wanting to ask for
Right.
help. And so they wait until the last minute, which we can still step in and help them. But yes, we're really trying is to educate the community, let them know we're here, because if we can step in earlier, it's better for everybody, and especially the kids, because homelessness has a real effect on children.
And we hear a lot about the lack of affordable housing in our area in particular. It's one of those things, Kim Herbstreit and I could talk for 3 days and never take a breath about affordable housing. Where are you finding places to put these people? Because it seems from the outside looking in that it's impossible to find a place that somebody can afford.
It's not easy, and that's one of the biggest things in our area that we struggle with. Fortunately, we do have some landlords, some apartment complexes who know what we do. And what they do is they let us sometimes move to the front of the line. They know what we're doing with our families, and what will happen then is a family who maybe has an eviction on their record, because they're working with us, because the landlords know they're working with us.
The risk isn't as high.
Exactly. Or it's the same with potentially knocking a little off the rent for our family. So we're very fortunate, but that does continue to be a problem. Kim and I have that same conversation, is how do you make more affordable housing? And we're working on that, but that's always going to be long term.
Yep.
So building partnerships with local landlords and them understanding what we're trying to do here has been just an absolute blessing.
And I know sometimes the phrase good-hearted and landlords don't necessarily go in the same sentence, but if there are people, landlords that are listening right now, that are thinking, you know what, I could give up 1 or 2 of my apartments to be able to help this organization, you're all in. They should call you.
Absolutely, they should call us. For anything like that, any of these inquiries of ways you can help. So landlords, that's huge for us. We're working with these families, we're keeping a tight eye on them. And so it limits risk for them. So if any landlords or really anyone else wants to reach out to us, we're always looking for volunteers. We need furniture donations. We need donations generally, to be perfectly frank. This HUME fund is something that's so important, and we're hoping the community can take this moment, see this gift from Opequon, and that it hopefully inspires others to give.
Because socks are great and you can use socks, but these landlords aren't going to take socks as rent.
Exactly. And no matter how much we case manage a family, if they can't make their first month's rent, they're not moving in. It's as simple as that. So any inquiries like that, you can either call us at 540-323-8038, or you can also email us at info@familypromisewinchester.org. If you're looking to reach out for services, head to our website, www.familypromisewinchester.org. Click on the Contact Us button. There's a program application right there. Fill it in, and we'll get back to you as soon as possible. Coming in through that website allows us to very quickly see what a family's needs are, get them into our case management system, and start moving, because a lot of these things are really time sensitive.
And you mentioned a second ago the impact of children and not having a home to come home to every single day. There are so many studies out there that show that kids that aren't getting enough to eat, that don't have a breakfast, a lunch, and a dinner, that don't know where they're sleeping on any given night or know that it's going to be in the backseat of a car, impact so many other areas of their life.
What's really scary is we're starting to get studies now that show that even when a child isn't what most people would think is homeless, say they're doubled up with another family that they know they can't stay with long term, that ends up having about the same effect on the child as being actually homeless.
Wow.
And we're talking about trauma. Everyone knows about neuroplasticity, right? This idea that our brains are evolving and responding to the environment, and that is going into these children. We're actually now just understanding, not to get too off topic and wonky, epigenetics. The environment affects your DNA expression. It can turn genes on or off over time. It's not set. And that then can get inherited by the next generation. What we are learning is trauma really is generational and can be passed on. And some of these numbers are horrifying. In 2018, there was a Minnesota homeless study that showed that about 36% of the people experiencing homelessness that they interviewed became homeless first at or before the age of 18.
Oh.
We know that infants born the year before or the year following their mother going into an emergency shelter were more likely to have a low birth weight, be hospitalized, visit the ER compared to other low-income infants. They were more likely to develop asthma, other disorders, chronic illnesses, acute illnesses, and then duration matters. A child who's homeless for more than 6 months, they're at much higher risk for developmental delays, hospitalization, and that's true from infants up to like 4 years old. It affects education. How do you pay attention when you're hungry? How do you pay attention when you don't know where you're going to do your homework tonight?
How do you pay attention when you're sitting in class wearing the same clothes you wore the day before?
Exactly. And other kids know those things, and even if they don't see those things, that kid feels that. And that is a shame that they will carry with them. And that's how this cycle continues. And that's just then the next generation and the next generation. We have to stop this because it's just so, even just the compassion of humanity, it's just so expensive. Childhood poverty costs the U.S. upwards of like $1 trillion a year.
Wow.
And what we do know is things like these programs save money. For every dollar we put into, say, food stamps for these hungry children, we get about a $4 to $9 return in investment.
Wow.
So when we invest early in these childhood interventions, which is what Family Promise is all about, we help stop a cycle, and we also help everybody in society. There's just no doubt about it. We all do better when children have a safe place to live.
And it shouldn't be a stretch for a lot of people to hear these numbers and understand the premise if they grew up in a family where, say, their grandparents survived the Depression.
Yeah.
Because it's the same concept. If you grew up in a household where your grandparents were living through the Depression, your generation also felt those because grandma didn't do this and grandma, it's something that it's a learned behavior that sometimes you don't even know you're learning. If you can prevent it from the word go, which you can in a lot of these cases, it's a win-win for everybody.
Sometimes it amazes me how easy it is for us to step in, do a little assistance, and it changes everything. We actually have a family who we're currently assisting, and the mother in the family, actually the first thing she said to us is, we went from taking vacations to living in a motel.
Wow.
All it took was an illness, a layoff, and that's where they are. Being able to step in early just saves that family all of this trauma that will affect them long term.
And it's a good point to remind everyone, too. Andy Gale and I have so many conversations about the Alice population. And this is exactly who you're talking about in a lot of cases. It's those people that mom and dad are working one job each, 2 jobs, 3 jobs each, and then the car breaks down. One of them can't get to work. There's a paycheck that's missing, and then it just spirals out of control. These are good, upstanding citizens who are trying to contribute to their community, and something crazy wonky happens to them that prevents that from happening.
And fortunately, through grants from organizations like United Way, we actually are also able to assist with some of those issues. Transportation is huge. We can actually assist with up to $500 of vehicle repair. We can help with back due property taxes up to $250. We can help with bus passes. We also are able to help with after-school childcare. We can help families with up to $300 for each family to help offset those costs of after-school care. All of this is designed to figure out what's that bump, get them over that hill, and then let them live smoothly. And so we offer all of these programs, but that HUME program is just so essential. And again, we are just, I can't say it enough, we're so excited that Opequon trusts us with that and sees what we do and supports it. And we are just so excited for the rest of the community to learn about HUME. I want everyone talking about HUME.
So as we wrap up, somebody listening today now is as excited about it as you are. Do they go to your website? Is there a donate button? How do they say, I want to give you $100, $10, $1,000 for this program? What's that look like?
Go to our website, www.familypromisewinchester.org. There's a donate button. There's links to contact us. You can do all of that on the website. There's actually a link for a donation, and what that'll take you to is a page where you can tell us what you'd like to do with the money. We will have the Help Us Move In Fund where all the money goes direct to financial assistance, or you could just give it to us wherever it's needed. But that HUME fund is such a critical part of what we do. All you have to do is visit our website, and you can learn much, much more about it.
And do you have social media? Can they follow you on socials?
We are on Facebook, Family Promise Winchester. Please follow us. We're trying to do a lot more posting. Social media is just so important these days. And getting these stories out there, letting people see the young 19-year-old couple who has nowhere to turn, living in their car, pregnant, who just needs a little bit of help. We have all of this stuff on social media. We're trying to share these stories because it's just a story that needs to be told.
You said at the very beginning of our conversation that you are the best kept secret in the area, and you don't want to be the best kept secret. And something as simple as going to your Facebook, following along, and then scrolling through your feed and just sharing a couple of posts can have a huge impact. People don't think that it does, but it can have a huge impact.
Just a like on a post really does have a huge impact. There's all these algorithms that determine who sees stuff.
Oh, yes.
And the littlest bit, even those things make a real difference. Or if all you have is 2 hours to volunteer, that makes a real difference. Or it's funny, sometimes people will apologize. I'll get a check for $5 and then I'm sorry, it's not more. $5 makes a real difference. And so there are just so many ways to help.
Oh, yeah. And the thing that people don't realize is if you get 100 people giving you $5,
yeah,
there's your impact.
That's $500. That is, like we've talked about, that's one family that we were able to prevent from an eviction. And it's incredible because these things can be expensive. We're talking about housing. It's just so important that we have that community support. We don't get government funding. We are funded by local churches, local foundations, larger foundations, and individuals in the community. We are a community-based organization. We must all rise together to help these families. There's just no other way to do it.
FamilyPromiseWinchester.org.
Yeah,
Start
that's
there.
it. Yeah, start there.
Thank you for educating me on all of the things. I knew some, but oh my gosh, I didn't know all of this. So I'm expecting everybody out there now. Your Facebook likes to increase and your donations to increase.
I hope so, but even if not, Janet, it's been a pleasure talking to you.
I will be back tomorrow with a brand new episode of The Valley Today, a few minutes after noon. So meet me here then.